Hey, excuse me. Good morning, everybody. How you guys doing today? I wanted to make a quick solo video. Up late last night watching Joel Embiid, the 76ers, beat the Los Angeles Lakers. Embiid was absolutely insane. For that reason, Matt and I both needed to sleep in a little bit this morning. So normal video will come out after this. But while Matt's grabbing his coffee real quick, I just wanted to go through and talk over a subject for some newer players to DFS. And that's going to be understanding the cash line, why it's higher some days, why it's lower some days. I think it's kind of a big deal if you're a new player to DFS. If you're a wily old veteran who's been playing this daily for 5 years, you got this. You probably understand this wholeheartedly. This isn't going to mean much to you, but for some people who are maybe new to DFS, I got some questions in our individual Facebook groups this morning. So instead of just going through this and answering the same question a few different times, I just want to cover it in one video. So we had an extremely high cash line last night, but it happened for three different reasons. One, and first and foremost, Joel Embiid was amazing last night. One of the most dominant performances I've ever seen in my entire life. We've had higher DFS scores, but simply watching the game, it was just pure and utter dominance on his part. Like when you see Harden or Westbrook go for close to 100, it's dominating, but it's different because they have the ball in their hand the entire game. When Embiid does it, and he's posting people up and just dominating in every fashion, it was amazing. That kid is awesome. I'm still almost speechless at how great he was last night. But a big part of the cash line being way off last night, like way different than normal, was the fact that Embiid went off for over 90 points at over 50% ownership. Now, how you did is going to vary because I'm going to look. I entered a bunch of smaller dollar double ups last night. I was in a hurry. I had some stuff to do. So I usually pick out a couple of not big double ups, but like a couple 25s and stuff like that. And I played a bunch of smaller ones last night. So I got a good variety and a good mix of how people are owned by going back and checking those out. So, for example, I have a double up that I cashed in with a score under 300, just under 300, under 300. And I cashed in a double up. But the reason I cashed in this double up was Joel Embiid was only 54% owned, which is definitely going to be the low end from what I've seen. And I had a good number of double ups entered last night. So he was really low owned in that one by comparison, which I'm not 100% sure why, because this is a big double up. This is 3,500 people, so it's not a smaller one. And he was only 54% owned. Meanwhile, in a different double up, same denomination. So we're not talking a $500 double up versus a $1 double up. Same denomination. In this one, he is 78% owned. So his ownership was a big difference last night. So this made a really big deal to how high your cash line was going to be. Like, for example, in this double up, I'm looking at a cash line of 310. Whereas if I flip over to this one right here, cash line's 293. So the biggest part of why that double up switched was because of Embiid's ownership. Now, he was chalk, but how chalky he was flipped back and forth depending on which one you were going to enter. So the cash line is way up. It's way up mainly because of Joel Embiid. So it doesn't change what you're looking for out of your other seven guys. And what I mean by that is if you played a guy, for example, let me just pick somebody so I can give a real life example. Who would be a good one? Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker was perfect last night. Perfect example. So he was also really highly owned. A lot of people liked him for all the obvious reasons. And what did Kemba Walker do? Let me see here. He was okay. He was just okay. He gave you 37.75 points off of his salary of, I believe, 7,400, which is like right on cash game value. Now, in this situation, I know some people are going to think he's a letdown because they're going to look at what the cash line needed to be. You don't average it out between your 8 people in this situation. The cash line is high. It's 50 points higher because Embiid literally almost went for 50 points over 5 times his value. So Kemba was not a great play last night. He wasn't a bad play. He was just a play. Same as like a Mario Chalmers, for example. Chalmers went for 21.5 off of the salary of 3,800. So again, he scored about 2.5 points over what cash game value should be on that. You're usually looking for a couple extra points on your cheap guy. He did his job. He wasn't great. He wasn't bad. He was just there, and he was a part of it. On the flip side, we had a couple other guys who were a big reason to why the cash line was a lot higher last night. But take a look at Tyreke Evans. He went for 44.5 at massive ownership. I'm seeing again, this other double up I played in was weird. He is only 54% in this one, but in a lot of the other double ups I was in, he was over 80%. So you saw a little bit of a variance around there last night. That's why maybe you cashed in some of your double ups and didn't cash in other ones. And I'm purely trying to address some of the questions that I saw within our own private Facebook groups. Some people, went to bed salty, thinking they had no chance. Woke up to money because Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, who were two of our favorite plays yesterday, went off. Other people, thought they were going to win because Gasol went off for them, and then Joel Embiid went ahead and knocked them out. So it's all sorts of different results. But when you're looking at your chalky guys, just how chalky are they? And that's one of the advantages you get by entering multiple double ups. And if you go back and study your results the next day, you have a feeling of why you succeeded or didn't succeed. So then it goes back to a guy like one of the guys that I recommended yesterday for cash games was Contavious Caldwell-Pope, and he goes for 30.75 off of 5,100, which is about 6 times value. So in the cash line as of last night, it doesn't seem like a good play, but in the grand scheme of things, that's still a good play. You're still aiming for 5 times value with your guys, and even if the cash line is higher, it's generally higher because 1 to 2 chalk plays are the reason for it. Another guy that I hadn't brought up yet was Marc Gasol. Now, I was not as big on Gasol as some other people were, and just going around and looking again at the ownership of Gasol. In this one, I got Gasol at 25%. And over here in this one, I'm guessing he's much, 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 much higher. Yeah, I'm seeing him at 40%. So Gasol went like beast mode, legitimately one of his best DFS games of his career. And that's another thing. I know I saw the question in one of our Facebook groups, like not quite understanding what happened and what was different last night. So depending on which double up you're in, once Embiid goes off, like legitimately you knock out whatever percentage of the field doesn't play. But on the flip side, Gasol was also big time last night, 70.75. The combination of those two, I'm just kind of looking around. It looks like they're comboed up in anywhere from 15 to 30% of the lineups in the double ups I'm in. So it's probably somewhere right around 20, 25% on average. Right there alone, those people basically all cashed. So you got about 20 to 25% of the field approximately that all automatically were going to cash because they got 161.5 points out of 2 guys. That's pretty amazing. That's not going to happen too often. It's a little bit of an odd night in that factor, but that was the reason that the cash line was so high last night. But again, it doesn't change that a guy like a Mario Chalmers or a Kemba Walker, these guys were both just fine. They did their jobs. They weren't good. They weren't bad. They just did what they were supposed to do. It really didn't help you win. It didn't help you lose. Just because the cash line was much higher, it was basically much higher because of 3 guys, Tyreke Evans, Joel Embiid, and Marc Gasol. If you take those guys out of the mix, it's actually not a very high cash line. If you just take those 3 guys out of there, and that's the reason, like, you could cash, what is it again? Looking at this one, was a higher cash line. It's just 310, so that's about 60 points over. But Embiid alone brings you 46 over, and then you add in Evans, and that's all the points over the 250 aiming point. Your end goal is still to aim for approximately 250 in double ups. That's what you're looking for out of your players, which equates to 5 times their salary. If a guy is 5K, you want 25 points. If a guy is 6K, you want 30 points. Stuff on top of that is great, but that's generally what your goal is for looking for guys, and that's why you look for more consistent guys. So on the flip side, OG Anunoby, or however you pronounce his name, yeah, he was terrible last night. 7 points off of 3K. But the big thing here is it was bad, but he's probably not the reason the most of you guys didn't finish in the money if you used him and didn't finish in the money. I'm looking at him right here, 78% owned in this one. I got him at 60% owned in this other one. So he had a lot of buyers. And really, you're only down about 8 points. 8 points you can come back from. So while it's a bad play, he's probably not the reason you lost because he had a ton of buyers. And he's got such a small salary that it's really, really limited risk in that aspect. So he's probably not the reason for it. But it is a factor a little bit. So I'm just trying to get some of the newer guys out there, whether you are a paying customer or you just kind of watch these YouTube videos, to have a better understanding of what you're aiming for, what you're trying to get out of your guys, and why some days the cash line is much higher than others. Now, if you flip over, if anybody can remember this, 8 or 9, 10 days ago, last Monday, when the cash line was legitimately, I cashed in GPPs at like 220 or something like that. It was horrendously low. It's when the chalk plays go off low. And if you're really new and you don't know what chalk plays mean, chalk is your highly owned guys, your Mario Chalmers from last night, your Tyreek Evans, your OG Anunoby, Marc Gasol was relatively chalky, and then like Joel Embiid was like uber chalk, super, super, super high chalk. You don't generally see guys that big of money that highly owned, but he was in such a good spot, you know. And one more thing just to add to that is kind of a side note. I did probably field 5 questions the last hour or so before tip off last night saying, Embiid sat out shoot around. Are you nervous about him? Any concern? He says he's only about 50% back, and I had zero concern, guys. The 76ers specifically have been pretty good to us DFS players in explaining when he's going to be out so that we know about him, when he's injured, when he's not injured. I actually think that people who bought into the I'm only 50%, I think you're getting a little bit trolled by him. The dude is hilarious. Joel Embiid is an absolute character. Us NBA fans are lucky to have him around. Not only is he a lot of fun to watch, he's generally hilarious, like on social media and stuff like that, whether it's, you know, calling out Mia Khalifa or whatever it was, or just trolling other people. He's generally super funny on social media. So when he says he's 50%, I'm not sure how much I buy that. I just think he was kind of trolling DeAndre Jordan on that one. Like, I took you to school the other day at only 50%. We'll see what I do against the Lakers. Maybe he's trolling Lonzo or LeVar Ball or whatever it might be. But I never got overly nervous about it because I read that and I just kind of laughed because this dude's a character and a half. He's super funny like that. So the 76ers, again, though, have been really good to us about his schedule. So for us as DFS players, it's kind of nice what they've been doing to us. They've been letting us know. So when you see little things like that, don't always try to read too much into it. If you flip-flopped off of Joel Embiid last night, you're probably on, really, really regretting it this morning because he was amazing last night. Just kind of watch what the 76ers say. They've been really nice to us DFS players from that perspective. So I hope that helps a little bit. Still, your goal for cash games is 250. Aim for your players to get 250. And then if chalk guys like Evans and Embiid, guys that were in supreme spots, blow up, it's going to raise the cash line. Now, if you didn't have Marc Gasol yesterday, it did become a lot harder to cash, even if you had Embiid. So I actually like what my business partner, Matthew Bellman, said in a post in one of our Facebook groups. I didn't love Gasol yesterday. I didn't think it was a bad play, but I didn't specifically love him as much as some other people did. You just say you're wrong, chalk it up to a mistake, move on to the next day, congratulate the guys who played him, and congratulate Marc Gasol for having maybe his highest DFS score ever. I didn't go back to look. I'm sure maybe he scored higher before, but one of the best games of his career. Some days guys just play really, really well, have great games. Pat him on the back, say nice game, and go get him tomorrow. There's really not much you can do about it. So we progress and we move on to the day. But if you're a newer DFS player, I hope that kind of helped just give a little bit of understanding to how cash lines fluctuate so much. It really just comes down to what does the chalk do that night. And if the chalk stinks or the chalk gets ejected, you're going to find a much lower cash line. Or if he walks off with an injury, all those things affect it. There's days where it's great and it helps you, and there's days when it sucks and it hurts you. And that's DFS for you. I know Matt was specifically saying that he had a couple of people message him this morning saying that they went really big yesterday because they liked the slate. Then they lost by 3 points, and maybe it's likely because Gasol went off and you didn't have him or whatever it was. And I can't repeat how many times I say this. DFS is supposed to be fun, guys. There's going to be a lot of great days and there's going to be a lot of bad days. And I've always found people ask me why I don't play for more. I have trouble enjoying this game if I play for more than I feel comfortable with. If I bet $100 and I lose it, I'm not happy about it, right? But it's not the end of the world. If I were to bet $500, $1,000, $5,000, wherever it was, and I were to lose that, I'd have trouble sleeping that night. It would bug me. It would feel better when you won, but I can't take the ups and the downs. So when you're making your bets at night, don't bet more than you feel comfortable with losing. This game is ultimately decided to be fun. I know people want to just play DFS for a living, and that's great. And if you aspire to that and you can make it happen, I think that's awesome. And I give you all the credit in the world, but that's not most people. Most people aren't going to be able to do that. Whether it be just they don't have the time, they don't have the sports acumen for it, or whatever it might be. A lot of times it's just going to come down to not being able to have the time to do that. But this game is supposed to be fun. If you're betting so much that you have to ring up your credit cards the next day, or you have to borrow money from somebody, I get messages from people sometimes like, hey, I really want to buy your service, but I can't afford $30. trust me, been there, done that. But if you're having trouble swinging $30, I mean, you're not going to have the bankroll to go into playing DFS full time. So don't bet so much that it hurts. And I know Matt and I talked about this the other weekend when he bet more than he normally did on a game, and it didn't work out like he did. And he was mad the next day, and we talked it over, and he said, it's one of the rare times I think I'll listen to you. I get a lot of thrill playing this game, but when I bet too much and you lose, it really, really hurts. So just be smart with what you do, and you'll have more fun. This game is supposed to be fun, and it's great to win money. And if you do a good job, and if you pay attention and you listen and you try to get better, you can win more than you can lose. But most people don't win, so it's not an easy game or anything like that. So, all right, I'm done with my soapbox for the day. Matt and I will get to work on our picks for the day. We got a pretty boring 2-game slate. The games look like fun. I'm just saying I don't like 2-game slates myself personally, so I always tend to spend down on 2-game slates. I don't like how it generally comes down to like one play. You got so many guys that are about 50% owned, and then what will happen is there'll be like the one guy. I think the Suns play tonight, for example. Let's say Devin Booker's 50% owned, and Booker goes for 58 tonight. Okay, people who played him win. People who didn't play him probably lost, and I just don't like the 2-game slates. Excuse me. So do what you want to do. I know some people love 2-game slates, but again, we all play differently, right? I know some people who clean up on ugly slates or clean up on 2-game slates. To each his own. All right, guys, good luck today. Regular video will be out later. Thanks for listening to me, and talk to you guys soon.